Hey there, and welcome back for another video and my movie review. For another discussion of Bruce Willis and another movie of his. And once again, this is Evo Rainbow McLean for life. And today I'm going to review and talk about 12 Monkeys, 1995 science fiction mystery thriller film. And 12 Monkeys was based on a short story by Chris Marker, which this was a remake on a French short video La Yeti, and was a science fiction which ran for 28 minutes long and was in black and white, which was a short film. And 12 Monkeys talks about in the year 2035. It's not mentioned in the movie, but the year is 2035, and it talks about a deadly disease caused virus that was released and caused by an army of 12 monkeys, which wiped out whole planet and all life. About 5 billion people died, and now whole civilization lives underground, and no one goes on the surface except in camouflage and of course in a white suit in order to protect themselves from virus. And this movie is set to 2035, but was released in 1995, but honestly, yeah, it's it was released. We are now 2021, but this was said like 2035 about virus wiping whole entire population, deadly virus. Whole human race has been wiped out in hours, in 2 days, which 5 billion people, which is really fascinated, because we also are on a break in pandemic crisis with COVID-19, which a deadly outbreak, actually a deadly virus burst out and start killing us. And that's kind of really amazing story and fascinating. And this is actually a remake, and of course stars Bruce Willis, Madeline Stowe, and Brad Pitt in the film. And it's been the year 2035. Bruce Willis stars as James Cole. He's a prisoner. He lives underground for his crimes. He's volunteer. He goes on a surface, which he makes a beer, and he finds the sign which says 12 monkeys, we did it. In order for his pardon, for his freedom, he accepts the mission to go in a time to find out in the year 1996 to find out the information who has the deadly virus and when it's gonna be released. So the scientists, they go and they send him on a long time machine with a time travel back in time, but they accidentally send him 6 years earlier in the year 1990 in Baltimore. And then James, he goes and when James he's been there, he makes a mistake because he keeps being all naked, and he keeps screaming about deadly virus. He gets arrested and thrown to jail, and Dr. Psychiatrist Catherine Riley, played by Madeline Stowe, that's her. She's been called to evaluate his state. He's actually his mental state, and he tries to convince her about a deadly virus. She doesn't believe him. The board doesn't believe him. He's sent to a mental institution in which he meets Jeffrey Goins, played by Brad Pitt, and it's not a great screenshot of him, but yeah, Brad Pitt plays Jeffrey Goins, actually, which he's locked up in a mental institution, and he becomes an ally to James Cole and becomes his friend. And James finds a spider, tries to bring them back, but he eats them. But more he starts, focusing. He tries to break out of the mental asylum. Because Jeffrey Goins makes a riot. He starts a riot and helps James to escape. James escapes, but he's been once again caught and locked up in a bed in the room. But now he's been he's been now once again teleported back in his future. And when he's questioned by the scientist that sent him in the mission, he tells him that he was way too soon. He tells him he was actually that he actually was in 2000, that he actually wasn't in 1996, he was actually 1990, and he was arrested and sent to mental institution. So in order to get second chance, he goes back, and this time in the right year, in 1996, once again in Baltimore. This time he kidnaps Dr. Catherine Riley to go in Pittsburgh. While he finds out that the key is Jeffrey Goins, because he saw him by the pictures, he was the one of the members of 12 Monkeys. He finds out that Jeffrey Goins is actually a son of important scientist, and when he has a party, he finds out that there's security everywhere. When he tries to talk Jeffrey out of it, about tell him the resource of the deadly virus, he gets attacked by his security guys, and he escapes. And of course, then he opens the trunk because he tied Catherine. He tied her. He showed her in the trunk, and she goes and kicks in the face. She starts kicking him. But then she tries to convince to turn them both in. But once again, he goes back in time in order to get actually another chance to report more about the information that she didn't got. They actually once again send him back, in the year 1996. Before this was prevented in November, but he gets sent accident in 1970, which he gets hit by a shrapnel, by a old antique bullet, and he gets back, and suddenly, Dr. Catherine Riley starts believing the story of James, that he's really coming from the future, that he really is from the future. She starts to believe him. She starts to believe that Jeffrey Goins is the member of, actually the leader of the army of the 12 Monkeys, and that he's gonna release the deadly virus, and she tries to stop them, and she tries to find James. And once the last time they do find James, she actually finds a James, but now both of them became fugitives in their own time. And then of course they go in the airport. They try to escape on Florida, but James been contacted by one of his cellmates, and he tells that he's a watcher, and he has to kill the girl or he's gonna be killed. And when he had visions as a kid, he didn't know that he's been haunted by his own death. And they both Catherine and James finds out that there's the man with a long ponytail. Dr. Peters is the one that released the virus of 12 Monkeys. Actually, it was a virus. He just blamed the 12 Monkeys. 12 Monkeys were actually a group, were actually an animal group, which they went into the zoo. They released all the animals, and they tied up and locked in the cave, in the cage, not the cage. They actually locked the cage, the scientist, and of course Jeffrey has been released, but he's been played for the deadly virus, and she didn't know what's going on. and it turns out that Dr. Peters was the one that released that virus that wiped whole human race, and the survivors were living underground. And James tries to stop him. He runs through the scanner, tries to shoot him, but he gets shot in the back. And Catherine runs, tries to save him. She screams, and we see a kid, watching him in his own eyes, and he's been haunted ever since. And in this movie, James dies. In this movie, James Cole dies. But Dr. Peters escapes on an airplane, and he talks to the scientists in the future, and the movie then ends. Now, actually a really fascinating movie, but I'm not a fan of this film. 12 Monkeys is a really good movie. It's actually it's written poetic, hypnotic by Peter Travers, Rolling Stone. I thought it was just a time waster. It's a good movie, but it's a time waster. I fall asleep. There's a lot of fans of this film. I'm not one of them. I'm not a fan of this film. Now, this is the custom cover. I don't have the original, but I'm fine with it. Visionary, feverishly alive. So we have Madeline Stowe and Bruce Willis. Bruce Willis plays James Cole. Madeline Stowe plays psychiatrist, Dr. Catherine Riley. And like I said, this movie was based on a short story by a short film called French short film from 1962 called L'Ayeti or L'Ayeti by Chris Marker, which was filmed in black and white at that time. And Bruce Willis did a good job. I thought how they filmed, the environment, when he's underground with other prisoners, the cells. I thought they really did a fantastic job. I love the environments, the costumes. James Cole did. Bruce Willis did a fantastic job as James Cole. But yeah, I like the film. 12 Monkeys is a really good one. It's really a good movie. Was written by David and Janet Peoples, and was directed by Terry Gilliam, which he did a good job. Bruce Willis wanted to work with Terry Gilliam, and they both met in 1991 before this movie was actually released, because this movie was released after Die Hard to Vengeance, after my favorite movie is released. And they both met, and Terry Gilliam liked the emotion scenes that Bruce Willis had on Die Hard, and he found out that Bruce Willis will fit for the role of James Cole on this movie. Madeline Stone was also cast, and I read that actually Bruce Willis did this movie for free. He wanted to work with Terry Gilliam. He was paid after this movie was released, but he did it for free because he wanted to work with legendary director. Terry Gilliam had actually he was very worried, and he was very he actually was very worried, and how's that word called, that he was very concerned about Brad Pitt's acting performance, that he's gonna act loony the way he wanted in the mental institution. And they hired this coach for Brad Pitt, but it didn't work. So Terry Gilliam grabs his cigarettes and took his cigarettes away, and that time Brad Pitt obeyed. He did what the director demanded from him, because he was very concerned that he's not gonna pull it off until he took his cigarettes. So that was cool, in my opinion. That was cool. The music score by Um, by Paul Bookmaster. It was actually a really good one by Bookmaster. I did like for the 12 Monkeys. I did like the music score. Yeah, I forgot to mention there was I forgot to mention, but there's actually a TV series in 2015 to 2018. But I only watched the first two seasons because I didn't know if there gonna be if there's gonna be a third or a fourth season. I thought season two ended the franchise, but they actually did. They did two more seasons, which I never saw. I only watched the first two seasons. Aaron Stanford played the role from Bruce Willis, James Cole, and Amanda Schulen, she played Dr. Cassandra Riley. This time her name was changed from Catherine to Cassandra Riley. And from Jeffrey to Jennifer Goin, because it was unknown actress. She played Jennifer instead Jeffrey Goin for Brad Pitt's character. But yeah, I like the scene with Bruce Willis, in a time machine. Bruce Willis did an acting performance, great acting performance. This movie got an 8 on IMDb. But just I'm not a fan of this film. I like the film, more a time waster. I did fall asleep earlier. I kind of did fall asleep earlier, but 12 Monkeys is actually a real good movie. It's a fascinating movie. It's a really good movie. It's really a good one. I mean, if you haven't seen 12 Monkeys, check it out. But yeah, this is the costume cover that I have. You can find it. But overall, 12 Monkeys is a really good movie. The movie is set from 1970 to 1990, 1996, and 2035. I thought that Bruce Willis did a fantastic job as James Cole. I didn't like it that he dies on the end. Madeline Stowe as Dr. Catherine Riley, she did a fascinating, fantastic job. I enjoy her. And I really love Brad Pitt. Brad Pitt was actually, in my opinion, steals the show because he acted perfectly when he keeps jumping and he acts like a loony. But in the end, he was actually arrested. He was the leader of the Army of 12 Monkeys, but they were actually revolutionary. They just wanted to free animals because you see elephants, the birds, in the sky, elephants, and the rest. But yeah, it's actually it's a time travel film. It's a science fiction film, and it's rated there. It's from Universal Pictures, and it's a really good one. But yeah, that David Morse also plays Dr. Peters in this movie. Oh yeah, I forgot to mention this movie was released 27 December 1995. World premiere was around 8-9 December 1995, but were released in 27 December. The budget for this movie was $29 million, but made domestic $168 million, which, like Color of Night that Bruce Willis did, was a box office disappointment. It was a failure. This movie actually made $168 million worldwide and it was actually a huge hit that time. It was a blockbuster. But yeah, it was actually a really hit. Probably was even a bigger hit, in my opinion, than Die Hard with a Vengeance, because this movie was released after Die Hard with a Vengeance right there. But I enjoyed the film, even though it's kinda slow. The movie is like 2 hours 9 minutes. It's kinda slow. It has a slow pace. It's kind of, from time to time, I kind of felt bored with the film. Like I said, I fall asleep and I had to skip a few scenes because I got bored with it. I'm not such a huge fan of this film because there are other Bruce Willis movies that I enjoy, like Die Hard 1 and 2 and 3. The first 3 movies, I prefer this movie. I actually will prefer The Last Boy Scout, The Sixth Sense, The Last Man Standing, The Fifth Element, Red 1 and 2, Hostage, Sin City. Those movies I actually more prefer, but it has an 8 score, and yeah, just the ending. I wasn't happy that James Cole dies. I'm not a fan of the ending because I love Bruce Willis, and I'm not fan that he dies. I mean, he shouldn't die on the end, but still a good movie, still a very good movie, really a good one. But I'll call it a time waster, because to me it's a time waster. To me, I'm not a fan of this film. I haven't seen this movie in 6 years still, just like Color of Night. I prefer Color of Night or this movie, but people will say, oh, you prefer Color of Night, this movie is a masterpiece. Color of Night, it's not. It's to each own. I mean, I enjoyed Color of Night, but once again, it was way too long, and this movie was long too. But yeah, that's my movie review on 12 Monkeys. Thanks for watching, thanks for listening. Take care, and I'll see you in the next movie review. I'm out. Peace. Bye bye.